Good Shabbos. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're excited that you're joining us and bringing Shabbat into our community by bringing Shabbat into your home. We'll begin this evening with Shalom Aleichem, a song, a poem, a greeting to angels, and a reminder that each one of us has spiritual power to offer shalom to the celestial realm. And if we can do that, then we can certainly offer shalom to the earthly realm. We begin with Shalom Aleichem in the Siddur on page number 5. If not, perhaps you can just join in. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShoretz, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlochim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlochim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Nile Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlochim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seitchem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlochim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. L'chun Ranana, a psalm, it's actually Psalm number 95, introduces us to the actual preliminary service for Shabbat known as Kabbalat Shabbat, welcoming the Shabbos. We begin on page 11. L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'Adonai, L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'Adonai. Naria, Naria, Litzur Yishenu, Nikadma Fana B'Todah. Naria, Naria, Litzur Yishenu, Bizmirot Naria Lo. L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'Adonai. L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'Adonai. Naria, Naria, Litzur Yishenu, Nikadma Fana B'Todah. Naria, Naria, Litzur Yishenu, Bizmirot Naria Lo. L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'Adonai. L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'chun Ranana, L'Adonai. Loosely translated, come on, let's all join in and sing together in the presence of God. And now, one English stanza at the top of page number 12 within Psalm 95. If only you would listen today to God's voice and not become hard-hearted like the people in the ancient times in the desert. In the Hebrew, im b'kolo tishma'u al takshu levavechem k'mriva. If only you would listen and not become hard-hearted. From this psalm's point of view, the understanding of turning our voices and our attention away from God arises from being hard-hearted. How much spiritual energy does it require to soften our hearts, And the result of softening our hearts would be to hear God's voice. And that never goes out of style. And now on page number 14, on the English side of the page, prior to a melody from Craig Taubman, Psalm number 96, one stanza. The heavens shall be glad, and the earth rejoice. The sea in its fullness will roar. The meadows and all that grows in them exult. Even the trees of the forest shall sing praise as God comes. Every part of the world itself rejoices over interacting with and sensing God. And you and I can learn from the world's rejoicing to rejoice by welcoming God into our own lives. This is a different melody of Yismechu Hashamayim V'Tagel Haaretz Yeram Hayam Umla'o, found in the Siddur on page 14 at the little red arrow, or the last stanza, the first line of the transliteration, and if not, just hum along with the Yamamai part.
Yamamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai mai mamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai mai 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 mai, Yismechu hashamayim v'tagel haaretz yiram hayam umelo. Yismechu hashamayim v'tagel haaretz yiram hayam umelo. Yamamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai mai mamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai mai 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 mai. Yamamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai mai mamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai mai 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 mai, Yismechu hashamayim v'tagel haaretz yiram hayam umelo. Yismechu hashamayim v'tagel haaretz yiram hayam umelo. Yamamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai mai mamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai, Yamamai mai mamai mai 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 mai.
On page 16, Israel itself, the country of Zion, poetically named Zion, Zion. Zion hears of God. The land of Israel rejoices. The cities of Judah exult as you, Adonai, come here into our world. And now, on page number 20 in the Siddur, also in the psalmic introduction to the service leading up to L'Chadodi, Moses and Aaron among God's priests, and Samuel among those who called upon the divine name, called to you, and you answered them. You spoke to them from amidst the cloud. They kept your covenant and the brit, the law which you gave them. You answered them, Adonai, our God. You were and remain a forgiving God to them and to us. And the next line might be a challenge, but think it through. Even as you held upon them consequence for their transgressions, even as you, O God, held for Moses and Aaron and Samuel consequence for their sins, their missing their target, you still answered them. And when I am falling short of what I'm capable of doing, God will answer me. L'Charodi, page 23 and 25. L'chadodi likrat kala, p'nei Shabbat nikabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, p'nei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmiyanu el hamyuchad, Adonai echad, Ushemo echad, L'shem ultiferet v'litila. L'chadodi lekrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nikabela. L'chadodi lekrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nikabela. Likrat Shabbat lechuven elcha, ki mekor habracha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshavat tchila. L'chadodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nikabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nikabela. Yaminu small, tifrotzi, v'et Adonai ta'aritzi, al yadish ben partzi, v'nisbecha v'nagila. L'chadodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nikabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nikabela. If you're so able, please rise and face the door of your own home. If not, understood? Boi v'shalom, we welcome Shabbat into your home. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, Gam b'simcha u'v'tzahala, toch emonei am segula, boi chala. L'chadodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nikabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nikabela. And you may be seated at this moment for just a few moments, a little bit of the Friday evening psalm, sung in the Hebrew and then offered in the English. If you have the Siddur, page 27. Mizmor shir liyom hashabbat, tov lehodot ladonai, Olezamer l'shimcha elyon, Olezamer l'shimcha elyon, L'hagid baboker chastecha, Ve'emunatcha baleilot, Alei asor v'alei navel, Alei higayon bechinor, Mizmor shir liyom hashabbat, tov lehodot ladonai, Olezamer l'shimcha elyon, Olezamer l'shimcha elyon, Ki simchtani Adonai b'fa'alecha, b'ma'aseh yadecha aranen, Magalu ma'asecha Adonai ma'od, amaku machshavotecha, Mizmor shir liyom hashabbat, Tov lehodot ladonai, Olezamer l'shimcha elyon, Olezamer l'shimcha elyon. The last line, which we just sang, ends with the word machshavotecha, which literally in Hebrew means your thoughts. It's translated poetically in the English of the psalm, "How wonderful are your works, Adonai, how subtle your designs," but really it's more basic. How wonderful are your works, God, how subtle and how deep are your thoughts. How deep and profound are your thoughts, oh God. Imagine God's thoughts. And then the conclusion of this psalm every Friday night and every Shabbat reads as follows: "The righteous flourish like the date palm, thrive like a cedar in Lebanon, and they are planted in the house of Adonai," which means that within God's thoughts are the righteous in the world. And each and every one of us has the opportunity and the capacity of being righteous by acting in a godly manner in our own lives. And when you and I act in a godly and righteous manner, just imagine we have propelled ourselves into God's own thoughts. How does that make you feel? That's Shabbos in a nutshell. And now we rise the Borchu. If you have the Siddur, we're on page 39A. And if not, please just feel free to join in the Borchu, page 39A. Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach. Baruch Adonai hamavorach leolam vaed. You may be seated. The first bracha of the evening service, which we recite every single day of the year, and always the theme is the beauty of creation and the transition from day into night. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, sovereign of time and space, whose word brings the evening dusk, whose wisdom opens the gates of dawn, whose understanding changes the day's division, whose will sets the succession of seasons and arranges the stars in their places in the sky, who creates day and night, who rolls light before darkness and darkness from light, who makes day turn into night, who distinguishes day from night. Adonai Tzvaot is your name, living and ever-present God. May your rule be with us forever and ever. Baruch atah Adonai, who brings each evening's dusk. El chai v'kayam, Tamid yimloch aleinu leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. The second blessing of the evening service every single day throughout the year speaks of God's love as eternal, never abating. And that's Ahavat Olam. And tonight, a melody from Craig Taubman. It's the Hebrew prayer. And if you don't know the words, just take in the melody. The sense of God's love always surrounding each and every one of us and all of us. Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amecha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Al kein Adonai Eloheinu B'shochbeinu v'kumeinu Nasiha Bechukecha V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha U'v'mitzvotecha Le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayeinu ve'orech yameinu uvahem nehege yomam v'layla.
In preparation of the Shema on page 41. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Ve'avta et Adonai Elohecha B'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha v'aderech u'v'shachbecha u'v'kumecha u'kishartam liot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha u'ktavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'v'sha'arecha. A moment of silence. Emet, true truth. There's only one God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. Mi Chamocha, found on page number 44. On the English side, we are a conservative synagogue, and we have a conservative siddur, conservative prayer book. And a number of years ago, perhaps 8-10 years ago, when this siddur and its immediate precursor were just being edited and finalized, about 8 or 10 years ago, a decision was made to add one word on page 44. And I think this one word is absolutely groundbreaking. It's exceptionally innovative. Because the Michamocha, which talks about the people of Israel having crossed over the sea successfully and no longer being afraid of the pursuing Egyptian army, traditionally includes the term Moses. And Moses led the people in song. But the conservative Siddur about 10 years ago, because of the insight of the editorial committee, included the name Miriam. One word. Moses and Miriam led the people in song and in dance. And the addition of that one word, a woman's name, changes the entire picture, not only of this prayer, but of our mindset of leadership, of courage, of counsel, and of guidance. And leadership and counsel and guidance are not only the purview of men, but also of women. And how much more are we gaining because we have opened our minds? And it's only because of one small word, but that one word's change is global in significance. The top of page 44. U'malchutzo b'ratzon kiblu alehem Moshe u'Miriam u'vnei Yisrael l'cha'anu shira b'simcha rabba v'yamru chulam mi chamocha po'elim Adonai mi kamocha Nedar ba'kodesh noratilot ol seifele malchutecha ra'u vanecha bokeh yam lifnei Moshe ze'eli anu v'yamro Adonai yimloch la'olam va'ed v'ne'emar kifada Adonai et Yaakov ugalo miat chazak mimenu baruch ata Adonai ga'al Yisrael. On page 45, L'Hashkivenu, a prayer for us all and a prayer for all those beyond our synagogue, beyond our community, that everyone this evening and Halavai in the days and months ahead be able to lay down when it comes to nightfall with an enhanced sense of security and restfulness. And in consideration of what's going on in our world today, this prayer is very important. And so join me, and if you do not have the words, lend your heart. Hashkivenu, Adonai our God, to sleep peacefully. Awaken us to life, O Sovereign. Spread over us your canopy of peace. Restore us with your good counsel. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us. Remove from us enemies, pestilence, sword, starvation, and sorrow. Remove all the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, for you, God, watch over and deliver us. And you, God, are sovereign, merciful, and compassionate. Ensure our going and coming for life and peace, now and forever. May you spread over us your canopy of peace. Ufros olenu sukat shlomecha, baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom olenu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. And the top of page 46, Vishamru, a melody from Craig Talman. And it's a little bit peppy and a little bit different, and it means people enjoy Shabbat while you're marking and celebrating Shabbat, Vishamru.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam berit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et לדורותם ברידולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברידולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, אמן. בעלמא דברכי מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה, בעגלה, ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה, יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה ברכו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו amen. We rise, if so able, for the silent Amida. In the traditional prayer book, pages 47 to 52, and the last two pages, 50, 51, 52, speak of prayer for world peace, and also, oh God, help me to guard my tongue, the words that come forth from my mouth, the words that emerge from my lips. And I wonder what the connection is between world peace and words that I might say. And then as I think about it, and I look about the world that you and I share, and we see many different experiences before our eyes, and we hear many different words to our ears, on the news, on the internet, in various aspects and forms of social media. Every single one of us contributes to the world around us. There's not much of a gap between a prayer for world peace and a prayer seeking self-control for the purposes of enhancing and improving my own private speech. Maybe that's what we should consider tonight and in the hours ahead of this Shabbos. We rise a few moments of silent prayer. And now the full Kaddish on page 54. In a few minutes, we'll be making Kiddush. Excuse me. And if you're so inclined and you wish to make Kiddush over wine along with us, please feel free to do so. And perhaps you'll make the Hamotzi as well. For now, the Kaddish Shalem on page 54. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbo, Amen. Be'alma divrach yiritev michmachutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayedecho be'et Yisrael, ba'agalat u'bizman karif v'yimeru, Amen. Yehi shemei Rabbo mevarach, li'olam li'olmei olmaya, yitbarach, Yitporach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitman v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yitalev, v'yitalal shmei dekudasha, b'rechu, le'elam in kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran ba'alma v'yimeru, Amen. Tikabel sloton voton d'choisra kadam avuhon di v'shmai v'yimeru, Amen. Yeh shalom rabban shmai chaim le'ich v'yimeru, Amen. Oseh shalom bermamav, hu yaseh shalom, aleni v'kol Yisrael v'yimeru, Amen. Before we make Kiddush, I have a thought that I wish to share with you this evening. As a child, as a youth, I heard the phrase, "There but for the grace of God, go I." And somehow I had the sense that grace was not a Jewish term or a Jewish concept, that it was a Christian idea, and so I distanced myself from it, only to learn much later in rabbi school that grace, or chen as we call it in Hebrew, is very much a part of Jewish tradition, even Jewish theology. Chen is the Hebrew word, often translated as grace or favor. And if you ask me what chen is in Hebrew, I'll say it's God's protective love of people. God's protective love of people. That's all over the Torah. It's throughout the Nach, the Hebrew books of the prophets and the writings. It's all over the Siddur, the Jewish prayer book. God's protective love for people. And I wonder why we rabbis haven't done enough. We haven't done a good enough job to promote the idea that chen, God's protective love for people, is central and core within Jewish tradition and Jewish theology. In fact, it's such an important element that we have some names within our tradition that evoke that same term of chen. For example, the Hebrew name for females, Hannah, in English Hannah, comes from the Hebrew term chen, God's protective love for people. And there are a couple of masculine names as well, Elhanan and Hanan, Hanan and so on, if you will. We have names that embody the idea of grace or favor or divine love, which is protective for people. This is on my mind this week because of the Torah reading, which we read tomorrow and throughout the Jewish world. It's called Hanan. And Moses is speaking to the people of Israel, and he's reflecting back on years ago. And he says at one point, and I'm modernizing the term if you don't mind, you know, folks, I'm really disappointed, and I'm feeling a loss in my life because I understand that I'm not going to go into the promised land. I'm going to die here in the wilderness. And then Moses says something, and I'm peeling behind the layers, detecting something else. I think at the initial point some years ago, from Moses' perspective, he was really disappointed that God didn't change God's mind. And Moses knows a few years ago that he's not going to get into the promised land. And I think Moses' earlier understanding of favor or grace or chen is that God is going to do what Moses wants. And being close to God means getting what you want. But as years have gone by, Moses, I think, comes to understand that chen, divine love, protective favor, doesn't mean that God is going to want what Moses wants. It means that God is going to be there even when Moses is disappointed, afraid, feeling a little abandoned and alone, and then coming to terms with that. You and I might think that God is going to do whatever we want simply because we say, oh please, and we open our hearts and we are contrite or sincere. But that's not my understanding of God. The joke in rabbi school is that's kind of like making God into the cosmic vending machine. I pull the lever and I get what I want. That's not what God is. God is the reason for the universe. God is actually greater than the reason for the existence of the universe. But we're here because God needs us to live within the reality of space-time. And the connection point between you and me and God is that sense that we're not alone. God cares about us so much that God put us into the universe, and God is going to be here with us in spite of all of our frustration and in spite of our feeling alone or scared, worried, frightened, maybe even feeling a little bit abandoned. Because God's chen, God's protective love, is wired into the very core of our Jewish tradition. So instead of seeing God as magically protecting me because I think I've been good this week, put forth the idea, a core Jewish idea that we haven't talked about enough, of chen, of God's protective love, that God cares enough, that God has created the universe so that you and I can be in the universe and live our lives in the universe. In essence, the universe needs us, and our lives together brings meaning for God's place, God's reality. And perhaps if you and I come to an understanding that God will always be with us, in spite of our not temporarily getting what we want, we can open our hearts to a new understanding of our role in the world and God's eternal presence beyond the world. The place for meeting is within our hearts, and that's the source, that's the location of chen. May you sense God's intimacy, God's closeness, God's desire for you to open your hearts. And in those moments of fear and concern, May you be comforted that you're not alone and you matter to the universe and beyond. Good Shabbos. And now we rise for Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'avav ratzon inchilanu zikaron l'maseh v'reshit ki yom techila l'mikra kodesh zecher litziat mitzroyim ki vanu v'charta Yotanu kidashta mikol amim v'shabbat kodshecha b'yavav ratzon inchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mikadesh haShabbat. Perhaps you have a piece of bread for the hamotzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. And now remaining standing, the Aleinu in the Siddur on page 56. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol latet gedula liotzer breshit shelo asanu kagoyeh haratzot v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama shelo sam chelkeinu kahem v'gor aleinu kachol hamonam v'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shehu Noter Shamayim V'Yoser Haaretz Umoshav Yikaro B'Shamayim Mima'al Ushchinatu Zo B'Gavei Meromim Hu Eloheinu Einod Emet Malkeinu Efes Zulatom Kakatu b'Torato v'yadata yom v'ashevota el levavecha ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shamayim mimal v'al haaretz mitachat enod. Kakadu b'Toratecha Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed v'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yiyeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. In a moment, we offer the Kaddish Yatom, and if you're so inclined to recite the mourner's Kaddish at this time, you're invited to remain standing. We have a list of names remembered by the members of our shul, and if you would like to mention the name of someone whom you know, perhaps that name is not within our list, please feel free to do so in your own home. This Shabbat we remember with great love Helen Edelbaum, Beatrice Kahn, Harold Lampert, Rachel Cohen, Arnold Goldstein, Nancy Blanchard, Sam Mazel, Rose Gerwich, Mindel Wallman, Florence Cohen, J. Max Mazel, Albert Reiner, Kayla Zarimba, Ben Lubell, Ken Lubell, Larry Michelle, Philip Reddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, Amen. Be'olma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute. B'chaye chon u'v'yomei chon u'v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'v'zman kari v'miru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach la'olam ol olamei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudusha b'richu la'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran ba'olma v'miru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'miru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'miru. Amen. May you sense within yourself, your own experience, that the Creator of the universe is close at hand and bringing you a love of a different nature. And may you find within that shalom. We'll conclude in just a few minutes, but first, just some reminders. Tomorrow morning here at 10 a.m. we'll be doing services, and as you've seen by now, we have moved our services to YouTube, which is linked to the Shul website, and we hope this is more convenient for our members and those beyond our members who are also participating. So Friday night's candle lighting typically will be at 7. We're a little bit early, but we're still working out just a couple things, so candle lighting will be here in just a few moments, perhaps a bit before 7, but ordinarily candle lighting will be at 7. Saturday morning services 10 to about 11:15, and tomorrow's the Parsha wherein Moses gains a new understanding of what it means to be surrounded by Chen, God's protective love. It's grace. It's not getting what you want. It's being supported by what you need. That's tomorrow's Parsha. Tomorrow night, as you know, virtual Alabama Havdalah on Zoom, 8:15. Sunday, locally, here at 10:30 to 11:30 for those who wish to join us under the front portico of our shul building. Bring chairs, we'll schmooze a little bit. Maybe we'll have a donut, but we'll just see each other wearing masks. You have to be safe. But Sunday morning, 10:30 to 11:30 every other Sunday. Monday is Tanakh study on Zoom from 12 to 1. Monday afternoon, 5:30 to 6 is story time with our young children, the toddlers. Tuesday, August 4th, the Spirit series, 5 to 5:30. The topic is Romantic Love, Jewish Style. Romantic Love, Jewish Style is Tuesday, August 4th. Thursday, August 6th, there's our book club, 3 o'clock on Zoom, discussing a book. It's a compilation of short stories. We Love You, Anderson Cooper. If you have any questions, just contact me. And next Friday, a week from today, will be Tad Shabbat at 5:30, 15 to 20 minutes, again on YouTube. For now, we'll conclude with Oseh Shalom, and then we'll light candles together. And if you have candles, we hope that you'll join us lighting candles. But for now, first, Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imro amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom. Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imro amen. And we'll light candles every day, it seems, lately. We could find an experience of darkness in the world. When you and I light candles, Erev Shabbat, Friday evening, we're reminding ourselves of our power to bring light and holiness into the world. It's not enough just to bring, you might say, visible or visual or Roy G. Biv light into the world. It's also important to bring spiritual light or holiness into the world. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'alei shel Shabbat. You are blessed, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, for having made us holy with the mitzvot, the commandments, to light the Shabbat flame. May you be blessed with holiness. May you sense that you are surrounded not only with chayin, protective love, but the love that comes forth from the membership of our shul, Ahavas Chesed. May you have peace this Shabbos.